Hello.
Howdy.
I'm Ty McLaughlin.
Hello, my name is Vita.
I'm Nevada Silsby Inman.
I'm Lexi Wadding.
I'm Abby Swift.
And today we're talking about mental health amongst
Gen Z, high school, college age students, young adults.
Firstly, we wanted to start off with the definition of mental health, just for people who maybe aren't sure what it is.
Mental health and what is mental health? Mental health is a base of disorders ranging from mild to severe, affecting someone's well-being, mood, thoughts, and all that. But mental health in general is a very complex interplay of an individual, like how they socialize, how they structure their stress and their vulnerabilities out into the world. And it's a very complex matter, and mental health is very big right now and it should not go unnoticed.
There's a myriad of mental health things, like disorders, if that's what you want to call them. Anxiety, depression, BPD, PTSD, eating disorders, schizophrenia. There's a chance that somebody you know is suffering from mental health problems.
Yes. I know so many people who have suffered from mental health, even myself. I struggle with mental health.
Me too.
Agree. In 2023, there was a study that was conducted that said that 76% of college students, people our age, have had problems with mental health, from moderate to serious distress. Of those, 36 were diagnosed, not had symptoms of diagnosed with anxiety, and 28 also had depression. And that's like a diagnosis. That's not, you're suffering from time to time. That's 1 in 3 people that you go to school with are suffering from something.
Yeah. I think that's pretty real, just knowing the workload of college students. I have so much to do, and it affects me mentally, and it can affect multiple people mentally, so it's not something easy to deal with.
Yeah. I have 7 classes this semester, and it's definitely taken a big toll on my mental health. So
yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That is kudos to you.
Yeah, for real.
I used to be a music major last semester, and obviously it's not as much academic work, but I mean, as we were talking about juries at the end of the semester, even if you pass all your classes, if you don't do well in a single performance at the end of the year, you are cut from the music program. It's a workload. And it's unrealistic in some circumstances, because we are young adults.
Yeah.
We need to go out and live, and I think
Our brains are still developing.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think high school specifically, I haven't had much of a problem with it in college because it is something I want to do. But in high schoolers, I think we've all been to high school. I think there's so many unrealistic standards set in high school also, that just set us up for failure in adulthood.
Yeah.
I agree. And me personally, I have to also work, which isn't bad. I don't mind. I enjoy working, but work, class, plus being 2 hours away from home,
It's a lot to deal with.
that's a lot. And being in a different state,
Yeah.
that's a lot. It may be a neighboring state, but it's still you're still far away from home.
Yeah. I think something that I was unprepared for in college, and was just missing missing home. You know?
For
No
sure.
one talks about how much stress that will put on you, because you're not going to realize it at first. You're going to be I got this taste of freedom, but over time it's just, I became really anxious,
Yeah.
and it was when something was hard, I wanted to go home.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just the inability for a lot of people not to do that, to not have the freedom to leave campus.
For sure.
If you don't have a car, you can't get off campus. I think that's another
Yeah.
really big thing for mental health. And I also don't think Ball State helps that by the fact that they don't have buses running on the weekends.
Yeah.
I agree.
If you really need to get off campus, because I think as college students we all need to get out, we need to do things, you know?
Yeah.
And I think the campus, the school is doing a somewhat of a disservice by letting people that can't get off, like underprivileged in the sense that they don't have a car or they can't get off campus or they don't live close by. They're just, in essence, trapping them.
Yeah.
I just don't think that's fair.
I'm like lucky enough to have friends that do have cars here, but like for the first semester I didn't really have many friends that had cars here, and I felt like so trapped. I was struggling in school. I had to like find a doctor to help with my mental health, and like I ended up flunking out of so many classes last semester just because like I missed home, and I only live like an hour away, so it's not like a terrible like drive to go back home, but like still you're expected to be here 5 days of the week, so it's a lot.
I live at home, so I don't have the same sort of issues as not being at home and that sort of how much it weighs you down. But on the other side of that, I also haven't really made any friends on campus at all because I'm always at home when I'm not at class, and I don't have a dorm room or roommates, and I just don't hang out with other people, so that also plays a big role in my mental health issues.
Yeah, I can see where that comes from. Yeah. I think Ball State in general, or just school, I think that there should be more outreach programs to encourage people, because I feel like some of these things, if you had a very good support group, if you have a good support group, it's just easier. And I think sometimes they make it hard. I don't think it's intentional, but it's hard to meet people on campus, especially if you're not from the certain, if you don't live in a dorm, or you do live in a dorm, but your friends are over there, and you can't get your car.
Yeah.
The buses don't run all the time.
Right.
It's very difficult to form a deep social bond, to form that support group that is so beneficial when you have mental health problems.
Yeah. And I feel like having like friendships and having those relationships is extremely important for like mental health. Like that's what brings like happiness into your life. That's what brings joy into your life. That's what you can do when you want to have fun or anything. So not having that would take a toll on your mental health.
According to a study from bestcolleges.com, in 2022 there was actually a study done that said 25% of students feel often isolated from others. So I mean that just further that plays a big role in just everything. I mean, and if you feel isolated or you don't feel welcome, it's gonna throw off your sleeping habits. It'll throw off your eating habits. I mean, it's a almost like I don't want to say a trickle down effect, but it's
like
just dominoes.
Yeah. It's just a hole you fall into.
And then another thing that they also said, I play for our Ball State women's rugby team. I'm on the board there, and I'm also a captain. According to the same study, college athletes, especially women's sports, experience heightened levels of mental health symptoms of anxiety, trouble sleeping, mental health exhaustion, and just feeling overwhelmed. And I know I personally relate to that. Even on and off the field, there's a lot to coordinate with equipment, posting, like that's a big part of my day. And not that not everyone can relate to that, but it's just different. No one really talks about, especially women's sports.
Yeah.
I've never heard anyone be like, women's sports are also difficult. They can also be mentally taxing. Because it feels like a lot of the times people put our sports as almost like a backup, like on the back burner. And we still are athletes for the school. We still are student athletes. And yes, we're students first, just like every other sport is. But it's still equally a time commitment. It's still equally putting in the same amount of effort, often for less recognition. And that's tough to deal with. It does cause me anxiety because it's like, am I doing this right? If I don't do a post correctly or something like that, it's just exhausting.
Yeah.
That's completely understandable. Like, personally, I, like, not in sports, so I don't really know, but, like, I've watched my friends who are in sports, like, kind of just, like, struggle a little bit.
Burnout is
so,
real.
Like, yeah, like, they get really burnt out by it.
Yeah, I was in sports in high school. I can't imagine doing sports in college because, I mean, the jump from high school work, like homework, to college homework is like extreme. Like, there is no I wasn't prepared for how much coursework I was gonna get, and
yeah.
like having to do a sport on top of that with like 5 practices a week, that would be just too much for me.
Yeah.
That sounds awful.
Yeah, the work-life balance, it's crazy because, I mean, if you don't go to a practice, you're either dropping your status or you're not a starter, but at the same time, like, that's what you love to do. It's just, it's a lot of stress, you know?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people can probably relate to that, not just sports.
Yeah.
But, like, if you're a music student, you know?
Or just clubs and activities.
Clubs in general, like, even stuff like that. If you have... It puts also your passions on the back burner, and
Yeah.
I think your passions are what we're living for, in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
And also, like, when we all know winter depression is like smacks you in the face.
oh, seasonal depression.
Like, so bad.
It's so bad.
So, like, on top of that, plus doing so much homework and being freeze outside, like,
oh my
Being cold.
gosh,
Like,
the buses
so
in the
cold.
winter when they're
Yeah.
all packed
Yeah.
like that. It's like, oh, do I wake up early to get a bus so I don't freeze to death?
Yeah.
Or do I just huck it through negative 40 degrees
Yeah.
to my learning how to add class?
Yeah.
You know?
We had a
It's
couple
so
cold
bad.
days, like
It was
in
bad.
January. It was
Even
really
like
bad.
raining, I think. Oh,
Yeah,
Does Ball State have any resources for mental health?
yeah, they do actually have a few. I know Ball State offers counseling to all students.
Yep.
You get
Oh, that's right.
yeah, you get 10 free. I think it's 10 appointments with a counselor
Yeah.
and a mental health professional through the school. I think it's per quarter. It's either per quarter or per semester, but it's a pretty good program.
Yeah.
You can switch therapists, find out what works for you.
Yeah.
So, I know several people that have tried that, and they've had a fantastic time.
I think there's a few like suicide prevention like clubs.
There definitely are. I know a lot of the sororities and
Or, like,
fraternities on campus.
helplines, like,
Yeah, there's oh gosh, what is the suicide hotline number? It's
988.
and that's also a fantastic resource
Right.
for anyone struggling.
Yeah.
There's also like several involvement things that one can do. Anyone else want to talk? I feel like I've been yapping a lot.
you're good.
I feel like the resources Ball State provide are like really good and they're enough for people like actually seeking help, but I feel like too many people struggle with mental health that like the counseling centers would get too much people in, or people don't want to reach out for help because they don't know what they're dealing with or how to reach out for help.
Yeah, there's definitely a stigma.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, you're
I
fine.
think the actual reaching out part is a big issue in mental health because
What I was gonna say was that, like, I know someone personally who had like contacted like counseling, whatever, and this was back in like I think September, and she had to wait till October just to get one singular appointment because it was so
That's
like
insane.
full. Yeah, like if that was urgent, like
Yeah.
I will say the campus police does have a very quick response time, as well as if you are ever feeling suicidal. I know all of the doors to roofs have alarms on them, and the campus police does have mental health officers, like people trained, certified in those fields. So I think Muncie, campus police, they're doing a good job, but I think that more funding needs to go into it.
Right.
There needs to be more open discussion because in our current society, like, men, they're told not to speak up about mental health problems, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's a really big problem, especially considering the male suicide rate is so high. So like this destigmatization of that.
yeah, males are just not in society today. Males are not allowed to express their emotions or their difficulties that they're having with their emotions, and it's really sad because some men will be dealing with so much and no one will ever know. They'll act completely normal and no one will know. And that's what leads to the higher suicide rate, because they don't ask for help and no one knows. So asking for help is really important, and destigmatizing.
I think.
Yeah, we have the celebrities.
Yeah, I think someone that we've all grown up with is Britney Spears.
Britney Spears, Robin Williams, and then Demi Lovato. I just did a. Let's talk about Charlie D'Amelio for a sec. What? That poor girl. She all that fame. I feel like.
Oh, even like
her.
I thought you were saying that she like has opened up about her stuff.
She did on her. What do you call that? Like a TV show on her.
Her reality TV show.
Yeah, her reality. She opened up about mental health, and I was like, I can understand. Like that's a. For like a 15-year-old girl.
that's a lot to
Yeah,
do.
that's a lot.
I mean, we see that with child stars all the time. Like if you've seen like JoJo Siwa.
We should be recording this.
I am recording.
Oh, okay. Okay, I was like, wait.
Like even with JoJo Siwa, I mean, she was on a show recently, and she opened up about how like fame growing up really affected on how she felt she could express herself, how it stunted her growth,
Oh yeah.
and you can see that even with what she's doing now, like. It's very clear to me that she doesn't really understand who she is, and she talked about that in her podcast. It was just she would discuss about how it was hard to open up about her sexuality because fear of backlash. Because if all you've ever had growing up is a screen, you've always been performing, on Dance Moms, things like that, and then going into a music career where you're marketing yourself, that's a lot of stress.
And with like Demi Lovato, for instance, like she was on Disney, and then like during Camp Rock 1, I believe, that's when she started to get into like really hard drugs and alcohol and like all that stuff. And then she was like, I think she OD'd, and then she went like to rehab and stuff. And she just kept on bouncing back and forth, and she kept on relapsing. And then the last time she relapsed was in 2018, and she had like actually died for like 2 minutes. But they got to bring her back, and then she's been clean ever since.
Yeah, you see that with a lot of Disney stars or child stars. Amanda Bynes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She, the same thing happened to her.
Mhm.
She's been to jail.
I mean, I think actors, actresses, people we've all grown up with, like Robin Williams, I know when he passed away, it brought a lot of light
Yeah.
to mental health. He,
Especially men's.
men's mental health, because I mean, he suffered in anguish for years. I never read anything where he opened up in a public interview, like, Britney Spears had, or Demi Lovato, JoJo Siwa, Charlie D'Amelio. He really suffered in silence until he just couldn't handle it anymore. And that is the reality, which is so sad for a lot of men in today's society, especially people that put on such a happy front. I mean, when you see Robin Williams, you think of the guy from Jumanji, you think of the genie from Aladdin. Mrs. Doubtfire. Yeah, the comedian, the funny person, and I think he's a really good example that you can be suffering and not be so like it's not always they look sad today because that's not the reality. Some people they just don't feel like they have any way to express that.
Right.
So.
Does anyone have any, besides JoJo Siwa, examples of Gen Z celebrities or anyone who has opened up about their issues? Because I know our main focus has been in Gen Z and college students.
Someone we can actually look up to in the social media that has struggled with mental health and has been open with it is Selena Gomez. She has opened up with her mental struggles, having panic attacks, anxieties, depression, bipolar disorder. In her documentary, Selena Gomez, My Mind and Me, she reveals the experience of having a mental breakdown and recovering from them during her tour. That's why she doesn't want to tour no more. Also, like being in the spotlight for so long, and on top of that, having the illness, lupus, and surviving with that, and how being physically sick and having mental disorder can affect someone. And right now, she's doing great, but she likes to advocate for these things, and we can learn a lot from her.
JoJo Siwa, Charlie D'Amelio.
I think also it's hard to know what you're going through when you're so young. It's not until later in life when you oh, that was anxiety, oh, that was depression. So
Mhm.
like for a 15-year-old to come out and say I'm depressed, I feel like that wouldn't happen, but it'd be more likely if like a 18-year-old or a 21-year-old came out and said, oh, I was depressed at 15.
Yeah, I mean, I think we see that a lot in music also. Olivia Rodrigo's "Brutal." That song is about her feeling like not successful enough, not good enough. She feels overwhelmed. She doesn't even know how to parallel park to quote the actual song. It's just her talking about how she feels so not ready, overwhelmed, anxious, not fulfilled for an entire song, and that's her hit song. And I don't think like that's one of her hit songs. It's one of her biggest ones, and that song I think is definitely about mental health, and it's just people think it's a catchy tune and not sometimes a cry for help. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming to our TED Talk, so to speak. I'm Nevada Silsby Inman. My name is Vida.
I'm Abby Swift.
I'm Ty McLaughlin.
And I'm Lexi Wadding.
All right.
Thanks for listening to our podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.